Okay, I think we should get started. So again, we are recording today's session. Hopefully that's okay with everybody. Welcome to Cobweb's Business Premium, a smart use of your IT budget webinar for June. This is not a sales session. There's nothing to buy here today. There will be an opportunity for you to give questions throughout the session. If you can put that in the chat, and we will circle back to them at the end of the meeting. We've allocated some time for that. Your feedback is very, very welcome and sought after, in fact, and your account managers will be in touch over the next few days to get your feedback and to cover off any questions either we don't have time for, or indeed that come up in the next couple of days. So I am going to pass you over now to James Graves, who is a modern workplace and Microsoft specialist, who's going to walk you through today's session. And as I say, any questions, just pop them in the chat and we can cover them off at the end. So James, over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Really good to be here with you all today. I'm going to start off by diving straight in with a bit of an agenda for you all. So just to give you a bit of an overview here, we're going to be looking specifically at Microsoft 365 Business Premium, delve into a little bit here about all the kind of features and the tools that all sit within there, just to give you a bit of a rounded knowledge as to why we talk about this product so much, why ourselves and Microsoft, etc., class this as the hero product over there. So it's really important that we kind of touch on 7 key components, which we'll go on to as we go through this. We've also got in here a number of little scenarios, etc., so you can see how some of these tools would impact businesses in a real world scenario. That'll be followed up with just some kind of case study bits and just some kind of information around Microsoft as a security vendor as well. Microsoft aren't particularly well known for being a security vendor, so we'll touch on that as well as a focus point. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was just some of the information that we see around challenges that businesses see. So the 3 key challenges we see with Microsoft on when it comes to these sorts of things is all around real-time collaboration, security, and cost. Now, real-time collaboration, most people look at this very much as being, well, we have Microsoft Teams, we can all collaborate with one another. However, it's not as black and white as looking at it in that sort of regard. When we talk about the real-time collaboration aspect, what we're very much discussing here is, do people also have access to all of the data that they need? If I'm going to be working from a coffee shop, if I'm going to be working from a hot desk and on a secondary office location, etc., if I hit these alternative locations, am I still going to be able to access my PowerPoints, my Excel documents, my Word documents, and other applications as well? So the real-time collaboration piece, whilst it does hold a piece in here of being around people talking to one another, it's also around data access and people being able to collaborate on documents from pretty much anywhere in the world. This has very much kind of come about from, I'm going to say the swear word, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. It very much changed the way that businesses are approaching where staff work and how they work and how people choose to work. And obviously, as the next generation of young employees come through, that's a changing dynamic that's there as well. So again, really, really important that businesses are getting these tools so that people can work from anywhere, which is kind of what is now required in most modern workforces. We also have the security aspect there. As we just mentioned, people should be able to access the data from anywhere. They should be able to talk to one another from anywhere. But there's a very real risk there of people working from these remote locations that they just don't carry the right set of security tools to be able to do this. So when we say the security tools, what we're basically referring to here is working from public Wi-Fi's. Is a prime example there of a location where people can be at risk. Other scenarios, train stations, working from airports. These are all scenarios where people need and want to access their data, working from those locations, but they need to be able to access that data securely, and you need to know that the people that are accessing that data are who they say they are. So it's okay letting all people log in from all locations, but how do we know that everybody in all of those locations is who they say they are? And then we've got the cost implications of it. Obviously, implementing all these sorts of collaboration and security tools, etc., kind of come with some significant cost implications. So as we go through this, looking at the business premium products specifically, you'll see that it's kind of tailored, that you can kind of have a single product that will fulfill many of these gaps within most businesses most businesses kind of security holes, should we say, and collaboration. And then we've got that little slogan at the bottom there that we have, which is legacy solutions don't solve challenges. Mixed vendor environments add the complexity to it. So this is very much about single portals, single training, keeping things easy. Is kind of the core piece that we kind of center this around. But one of the other things I wanted to kind of touch on as well for you was just around some security stats. So this is sort of things that we've seen in terms of trends and increases in the last kind of 12 to 18 months. And this is all data and information that's come about from the likes of Microsoft, Kaspersky, and even Homeland Security over in the US with some of their audits, etc., is where these stats have come from. So it's very credible sources. And you'll see on here that increases of 300% on ransomware attacks in the past year. With 50% of those are targeted at small businesses. One of the things we kind of hear quite a lot in doing these sorts of things is small businesses don't get targeted. We all hear in the news about the big hitters, should we say, the Marks and Spencers, the Harrods and things like that have been in the news recently. But one of the things that we don't hear about is when these small businesses do get hit. There's a really interesting statistic that came out of Microsoft's 2024 Defense Threat Report, which is not actually on the screen that you're seeing here. And that was that 60% of SMBs that are hit by a cyber attack close within 6 months of that attack being kind of going through its fruition. So it's a really, really impactful thing that if we don't have the correct tools in place afterwards, it means that it's twice as difficult to get things rectified after these sorts of incidents happen. And there's another, some pretty good stats on there as well. 1 in 4 small businesses or medium businesses, state they've had a security breach in the last year. So it's 1 in 4 saying that they've had some sort of security breach, and 70% think cyber threats are becoming more of a business risk. So it's becoming more and more top of mind, as it says there, for every size of business, whether that's a small, medium and the larger businesses in there. And it's very much a case now of where we used to see specific industries get hit really hard. We're talking the likes of accountancy firms, law firms and things like that because of that valuable data. We're now seeing that switch away and come a lot more into retail, a lot more into educational and research sectors and things like that, because again, they're very, very rich on data, which is highly valuable. Thinking of financial transactions, thinking of the data that comes out of some of the universities in terms of their research projects and educational centres research projects, and then being able to take that data and kind of sell it to the highest bidder, so to say. So again, there is so many different areas that we're now seeing this delve into, and different industries that are starting to get impacted heavily outside of the traditional kind of cash flow rich industries as we tended to know them. And there's a stat there at the bottom as well, with kind of the average cost of an SMB data breach. Now, that was kind of a number that Kaspersky did. They looked at it globally, although that number is in dollars. It was kind of averaged out from a global perspective. If you look at that stat on their report, so $108,000 is the average cost of that. And this cost isn't just this is what it's cost us to put it right. It's all the things that come off the back of that. So we can be talking there around things like fines that come from different legislation that you're supposed to have been abiding to and perhaps haven't. Data leaks, we're talking GDPR, non-compliance and things of that nature. So it's all the little intangible parts that come off the back of that, damage to people's brands, customers no longer choosing to work with them. It's really, really significant in terms of what damage it can do to businesses. But as I mentioned, we focus on the business premium piece. And the reason that we focus on the business premium piece is because of those 7 parts you're seeing at the bottom there. And as we say, this is called the hero product, basically. So to touch on those little bits, each independently for you there, it's those 7 parts which differentiate the product from your normal business standard product, and again from your business basic standard product. So we've got in there Microsoft Intune. So we'll touch on these as we go through in a few scenarios and things over the next coming slides, but just to give you an overview of each of these, Microsoft Intune very much aimed around device management. So whether that be your laptop, your tablet, or even your mobile phone, we're looking at this from the perspective of being able to manage these devices from a perspective of compliance. If the device is lost, can we remotely wipe it? If it's a device that was a bring your own device, an employee brings their own phone in, logs into their emails and things like that, it's being able to ensure that your data is protected no matter which type of device it sits on, whether it's a bring your own device, a laptop, a tablet, a phone, protecting it long term, short term, and also being able to kind of offer some insight into the device itself to make sure that it's compliant. Are they running their updates as necessary? Do they have access to all of the work applications that's needed? Just to kind of name a couple there. Information protection. This sits under a product set from Microsoft, which is something known as the Purview family, which encompasses a rather large range of products. But what information protection is about is protecting your data on the devices and in the cloud. So this can be things like being able to put passwords on documents, security labels on documents, and things of that nature to ensure that should your data go awry, or even stop it from doing that in the first place, you'll know full well that you'll be able to kind of ensure that those documents were encrypted and that only the people that should have access do have access to that, and that's something we'll touch on quite heavily. Conditional access falls into the same sort of scenario. It's ensuring people are who they say they are when they're trying to access your cloud and on-site infrastructure. Azure Virtual Desktop is all about being able to log on to remote machines in the cloud. So we're talking like virtual computers in the cloud, which are known as virtual machines or remote desktops in most instances. Defender for Business, which is very much your traditional antivirus endpoint style protection, but it's going one step further. And again, it's something we'll touch on in more detail. Defender for Office 365 Cloud. So rather than this being the endpoint protection, this is your email protection. It's ensuring that you're minimizing and stopping spoof emails come through, phishing attempts, as many of you will have seen, a kind of a big industry thing at the moment. It stops phishing emails coming through, but it's also protecting you from attachments to your emails, or links that within your emails as well, and ensuring that they are what they say they are when people do go to open them. And then last up, we've got on there, which is Cloud App Security, which is protecting from something that is known as shadow IT. And again, that is something we will touch on a little bit further as we go through these for you. So to start looking at some of these bits individually, I always like starting off, we're talking about MFA, multi-factor authentication. I'm sure many of you will on this call will have it. I'm sure there'll be some of you that don't for various reasons. Cannot stress the importance of multi-factor authentication enough. As you'll see on the screen there, 99% of accounts are less likely to be compromised by using MFA. I think the actual stat that exists, it's 99.9% of identity attacks are actually blocked by utilising MFA for this purpose. So it's incredibly powerful as a tool, and it almost takes out an entire avenue of an attack vector threat from these hacker groups that are etc. around the world. Now, what MFA does really, really well for you is introducing, this is what's known as passwordless technology that you'll see on the screen there. So traditionally, everybody's done MFA under the old way of doing it, shall we say now. To have a password, you type your password in, they'll maybe get a text message with a code on it. You perhaps do that a little bit with your online banking and things. They tend to use this quite heavily. You'll get a text message, type your code in, and you'll get access to the system. Depending on how systems are set up, it might ask you to do that a couple of times in different applications, or it may just do it once and that's that. What we're starting to see here introduced is what's known as passwordless technology. So rather than this being something that is in a password that you can give away, this is very much something that you earn. You earn your phone. You're not going to give your phone away to somebody for utilising tools like Microsoft Authenticator, which is the application that Microsoft use for utilising MFA. You also have things in there like Windows Hello, which is using your webcam and your facial recognition. Again, your face isn't something you can give away, and this carries on FIDO2 security keys. That's like a traditional plug-in USB with a security key on it that says you are who you say you are, or your biometrics, fingerprint scanners, etc. that you're starting to see on laptops, and everybody uses it on their phone. I'm sure many of you on the call will utilize facial recognition and fingerprint recognition for logging into applications off your iPhones and Android devices. That's again using a form of MFA, because it'll be your password went in originally, and now you'll be logging onto your phone with a password, and then you'll be logging on again with your biometrics, should we say, to get into your application. So again, you've got MFA all over people's lives, and they don't even know they're using it half the time, because it is becoming more and more seamless. But continuing that and looking at what is known as the identity protection aspect of it, conditional access, we've got a bit of a what we'll say the challenge here, which is where the business kind of introduces a scenario where there's a problem, what they're trying to achieve, and then you'll see there's a follow-on side which is kind of offering up, this is the Microsoft product within Business Premium that gives the solution. And we'll go through a few of these for the different products that we discussed there. So as you'll see, we've got an organisation here, Northwind Traders as we're calling them, 50 to 100 employees. Some employees are working from the office, some are remote, some are working from their mobiles. So it's kind of a big pot, should we say, in terms of how people are able and choosing to work. What this customer wants to do for us is they want to provide employees secure access to their work applications so they can continue driving the business forward. However, if the right security policies are not in place. They're very concerned that hackers and bad entities could compromise their credentials and get access to emails and passwords. So how are we going to look at fixing that issue in particular is utilizing the Entra ID aspect of the business premium license. So what that means is that business premium in this scenario includes the Entra ID Plan 1, which includes two very important capabilities, which is multi-factor authentication, as we discussed on the previous one, and the conditional access aspect of this. So because passwords were easily breached, we've set up the MFA aspect. The MFA being set up in this instance using the Microsoft Authenticator app, as you'll see in the little demonstration on the phone screen there. We log in and it gives us a little prompt on our phone and we have to confirm it's us. So we're confirming it from the laptop and from our mobile device. So we're ensuring from 2 points that we are who we say that we are, which is brilliant. And then we move on to what is known as the conditional access piece. Now, conditional access can come in play with many, many different tools that sit within there, such as being able to block people from logging in outside of your geography. So I could have it set up where you can't log in to my infrastructure from outside of the UK as a prime example there. So you couldn't log into my Microsoft account to look at my emails if you wasn't using a UK-based IP address. That immediately kind of throws out the ability for most people outside of the UK to be able to be a potential adversary to getting into my system. There is also other tools in there, such as people with elevated privileges. So that would be people that have more access to the finite settings, etc., within our Microsoft 365 tenancy. We could perhaps make them MFA more regularly. So if they're going to go away and try changing some settings, we make them MFA not once, but we might make them do it 2 or 3 times, or perhaps we ask them to multi-factor authenticate in a particular way, as opposed to it just being, carte blanche, should we say, for people to be able to get in there. So it comes with a whole host of really clever tools that will kind of lock some of these systems down and ensure that when people are working remote, we are cross-checking that they are who they say they are by utilising MFA and, in a lot of instances, conditional access as well, which will dictate how and when people have to MFA. So next up off that list we was looking at earlier was Defender for Office 365 with a phishing attack. So phishing attacks are probably one of the most email threats that we see. I'm sure there'll be many of you that have probably had these come through to yourselves. Email that looks like it's from a legitimate organisation asking you to log in and give some credentials. I think some of the ones that I've seen personally more recently is people trying to send out like an eBay login, or targeting financial institutions with like a fake Barclays email even is one that I've seen as well recently. So what this is basically doing is it's trying to have people log into what is in essence a fake portal to provide a username and a password to them. They can then use that as their ways and means of entering into somebody's bank, into somebody's, let's say Microsoft 365 account for their emails and so on and so forth. So they could do some real damage as a part of being able to get those credentials. Now, they won't always use those credentials themselves. Quite often, those credentials will literally just go on a list and will be sold on the dark web, and it will be somebody else that comes in and does the damage. But you don't know you've been compromised in a lot of these instances without, specific tools to stop that threat. However, stopping the phishing email in the first instance is a really good way of us being able to do that. So in this instance, you'll see Northwind Trade employees receives an email with a link on it in this instance. So the link was what they was attempting to send us. Click on the link and log in with our details. But what we've immediately done is clicked on that link, and Defender for Office 365 has kicked in. It has opened that link in what we call a sandbox environment. So what we mean when we say sandbox environments is it opens it up in what is in essence a Faraday cage, a secure environment where it can do no damage. It doesn't look like anybody's opened it and nobody sees it. And when it's done that, it's scanning it, it's checking it. Is this legitimate? Is it what it says it is? It's looking for things like, it linking out to a rather weird location. Is it linking out to nothing at all? What's it trying to do? So it's looking at all this sort of data, all this sort of information within that link, etc., that's been sent. And then it's going to present one of two things. Either, no, you're not having access to that because we believe it to be a potential threat, or yes, that's absolutely fine. It's okay. Continue with your access. And it's all doing this within fractions of a second. And not only does it do this for your links within the emails, but it would also do it for an attachment. So if you have an attachment that comes through, zip folder, even silly things, PDF documents, notepad files, anything of that nature, it's going to do the exact same situation again. It's going to open up that link, that attachment in this sandboxed environment and ensure it is exactly what it says on the tin. If it's not, we're going to stop you from doing that. If you do want access to that, we're going to make you go away and speak to your IT admins, who will then release the email. Once you've obviously given the reason as to why you think that is legitimate. So there's ways and means of that all being set up as a part of your business premium plan. There is also a couple of other pieces that come with that. Time of click protection against these malicious links. Now, time of click protection is something that's become more and more of a talking point within the industry. And basically what it means is, if you click that link once and it checks it and says no, and says this is okay, we'll let you in. That's great. However, what is being known to happen is that link gets switched out. At the opposite end, whatever is on that linked page gets changed out, so that the second time you go back and click it later on in the day, it automatically takes you to somewhere that could be a potentially malicious web page or location. So what we use is, this is what's known as time as click protection. So what it is basically doing is, every single time you press that link, it is doing its necessary checks in that sandbox environment. So it doesn't just do the check once, it does the check every single time you go to access it. Ensuring that nobody switched the link in the background, unbeknown to yourselves, whilst you've been doing potentially other duties during your working day. It's a really, really important tool. URL detonation kind of falls in the same pretenses of that. Anti-spoofing technology, protecting you from those phishing emails coming through in the first instances, emails where people are trying to impersonate, senior members of a business, etc. is also what that's doing. And then multi-factor authentication. If you're trying to do certain aspects of this, it will ask you to MFA as a part of that process to say you are who you say you are. So again, this all kind of mirrors in together, as kind of a staged process of protecting you against these sorts of threats coming in via email. So next up, we was going to look at information protection. And for me personally, this is probably one of the biggest benefits of business premium. And the reason we say that is because it's protecting documents and data no matter where they sit in situ, which you'll see as we come on to the next slide. Sorry, but again, we're going to use Northwinds as our guinea pig in this scenario. So you'll see here, Northwinds uses occasionally a password on an Excel spreadsheet. This is to guard, sensitive information. Think salaries, as it says on the screen there. We could be looking at sales plans and potentially HR sorted documentation. This is all they're using it for at the moment. But the security measures that they're using are inconsistent. There's lots of documents that are emailed around the business or saved onto a USB stick and so on and so forth. No protection against these documents per that password. And the password's not really a deterrent, because a lot of individual staff members at the business all know these passwords as well. So it can be a case of, I have access to the salaries document, I choose to leave the business, that document is still on my USB drive, and I'm still well aware of the password to be able to access that document. It's a prime example of staff being able to take away with them what is potentially sensitive information, even if they no longer work with the business, which is one of the kind of driving things that we see really much in the recruitment industry. They're a big bugbear of this one, where staff can take USB drives of sensitive information away, and obviously able to utilise that at competitors, etc. Often unbeknown, and in some instances, there's simply nothing that can be done about it. So anyone can download these confidential documents and leave the company on these USB drives. However, if we started to look at implementing things from what is known as the information protection policies, we start getting some additional tools in play here. So in this instance, Adrian's created the company's sales forecast, and he classifies it as highly confidential. This is applying what is in essence a security label against his document to say that the information contained within is highly confidential. Now, as a part of this, he will have been prompted at the top of his screen to ensure that he selects a security label for this document before it will allow him to go ahead and save the document. So you can have highly confidential, you can have public documents, internal documents. You get a lot of control as to how this can kind of be labelled up in terms of its sensitivity. But in this instance, Adrian labelled it as highly confidential to Northwinds traders. So anybody within their Microsoft 365 Business Premium accounts that has access to highly confidential documents will be able to go ahead and access this information. So Laura, who was one of the salespeople at Northwinds, opens the document, has a read of it, sees everything in it, and says, this is a great document, I want to keep it. So she's applying it to her USB stick and basically takes the document away with her. However, because she's took the document outside of the business, she takes it home, plugs it into her personal laptop, and proceeds to try and utilize that. Because she's logging in from home using personal login details and not her work credentials, the document is no good to her. It's heavily encrypted, and it's saying because you're not logged in as a Northwinds employee into a Microsoft 365 account, this isn't a document that you can access outside of work. Now, if she was logged in using her work credentials, it'd be a different story. But because she's logged in using personal credentials, or perhaps the credentials of a new business that she works at, it's automatically saying this isn't a document you've got access to. We won't decrypt it for you. Is in short what it's doing there. Again, protecting that data and ensuring that there's potentially no data breaches that take effect as a part of that. So you'll see it's blocked, useless ornament to anybody basically without the login credentials of a Northwind employee. So this is a way of securing your data across there. You'll see there's some really good stats on there. 55% of SMBs say that they are concerned about employees leaving with company data on personal devices. Again, this is where the next product that we'll look at, which is Microsoft Intune, comes into things quite good as well in terms of this data protection piece. But this kind of acts as a deterrent piece as a part of that. So on top of that protection of the data that we saw there, you also have something in there which is known as data loss prevention. So data loss prevention is all about stopping the leak from happening in the first place. And what it'll do is it identifies certain pieces of information. So in most instances, we can look at this being quite sensitive information. Think names, addresses, telephone numbers, passport numbers, perhaps credit card numbers. That what we can make it do is that as soon as somebody starts creating a document and it recognizes what is potentially a 16-digit credit card number, it will automatically label that document as being a secure document, basically, whether that be confidential, highly confidential, however you choose to have it set up, it will automatically assign certain controls to that sensitivity of data that's provided there. Now, Microsoft has a huge database of pre-created data that's available in there so that their documents can recognize UK credit card numbers, UK passport numbers, names, addresses, NHS numbers, and you also have the ability as well with some additional add-ons to be able to make it so that it has trainable data in there as well. So you can train it to identify things such as your own unique internal purchase order numbers or account numbers, or perhaps you've got an internal identifier that you use against credit card payment or something of that nature. You can have it so that you can train the system to identify those numbers and the associated data that sits around it to confirm its validity and accuracy, and then provide that sensitivity label on top of that. So really, really powerful tools for making sure that the data doesn't leak in the first place. But in the eventuality that it does, these highly encrypted data pieces that sit on there will protect that data, ensuring that nobody can access it outside of the business. And I did mention a minute ago Microsoft Intune, which is obviously included within your business premium package again. So the reason we talk about this is because it allows you to protect devices. So whether this be a corporate device, this is a device that is my laptop, which is provided by my employer, or my phone that I bring myself and I log into my emails with it. You can protect your data in both of those scenarios without having any access to other data that you don't really care about. So in this scenario, we're looking at this from a bring your own device perspective, which is becoming more and more relevant in the industry. What we say here is Northwind traders, it's a marketing manager, personal phone, logged into her emails. Inside her emails, she's opened up a Word document and tried to save it to her personal storage. You'll see the little Dropbox icon down there. Tried to save it into her personal Dropbox. Kicked it back immediately and said, unfortunately, that isn't something you can do. Because we've got controls in place on Intune, it's keeping that corporate data inside the corporate box. So anything that is classed as corporate data, it will protect and it will stop them from transferring that outside of that environment. Doesn't care about anything else in there. Doesn't care about your personal applications. It's not bothered about your browser history. It doesn't care what you watched on Netflix last week, or even in the case of Facebook, what you've posted on your statuses. None of that is relevant. None of that is accessible or visible in any way, shape or form. The only piece that is this separated cloud aspect where your applications sit, your emails, the data within. your PowerPoint that you've created that's saved in a OneDrive environment, and your Excel document you've created that's again saved in your OneDrive on your SharePoint and things. That's the data it cares about, and that's the data it gets access to. Nothing else outside of that. And all it's doing is safeguarding that sensitive data and ensuring that you don't take it out of that secure environment. So that's putting it into your personal drive, putting it into your personal cloud storage. That's exactly what it's stopping as a part of that. On top of that, if it was a corporate device rather than a bring your own device setup, it would provide some additional, perhaps app protection policies and setup regarding that as well. So helps a lot with initial deployment of a device to ensure that a new starter has all the applications pre-installed on that device that they need from day one, so that they have their Outlook in there, they have their OneDrive on it, they have their HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever CRM you're using, all of that stuff can be set up to be pre-installed on there. Pretty much anything that sits within the app stores and the Android Play stores as well can completely be set up and configured so that you can have those apps, pre-deployed, pre-installed on devices. Fantastically powerful tool, can offer some real-time savings for new staff, as well as being able to protect your data, working alongside these other tools that we've mentioned. One of the other bits that we touched on previously as well was the cloud app security aspect, which covers in this particular portal, which is known as Cloud App Discovery at Microsoft. And as I mentioned, it was diving into something that is known as shadow IT risk. Now, for those of you that don't know, shadow IT is basically when you have users that are using applications that aren't within your kind of corporate portfolio, shall we say. So that would be, for instance, myself as a Microsoft user and me saving all of my data into Dropbox or into a Google Drive account, for example, Google storage location. It's very much a situation where I shouldn't be doing that, because I must be doing it into a personal account, and therefore I'm taking that data outside of the confines of what is known as, kind of a secure location for this. Could be me utilizing other applications. I could be copying data into other third-party applications for utilizing them for various different reasons. But it's ensuring that whatever data is used, the data stays within what is the known and expected realms is basically what we're looking at there. So this scours 16,000 plus cloud applications, as you'll see, and that goes up all the time. I think that's actually about 17 now since the last time I updated this slide. It's just increasing all the time as new applications become more and more prevalent. So what it'll be doing is, as I said, scanning from your firewall or from your Wi-Fi routers, etc., and it's scanning the traffic coming in and out, and where is that data being sent out to, and where does it come into. So again, various different ways it can be set up, but provide some really powerful tools for you to be able to either offer some education on saying you're using Google Drive, but we as a business use OneDrive and SharePoint, therefore can you make sure that everything gets saved in there, and we need to lift and shift what you have saved in Google Drive and put it into the secure location, the secure corporate environment, for ensuring we don't have any data leaks and we don't open ourselves up to any potential breaches with our data. So again, it's all about just keeping control of your data here. And this is just telling you where that data is going and where it's not going, and breaking that all down for you. And then one of the last ones I've got for you on here is talking about Microsoft Defender for Business. As I said at the beginning, this is very much a traditional endpoint security solution. It's not anything mind-blowingly exciting to talk about here with it, so to say, but it is exactly what it says on the tin, and it involves a lot of AI and a lot of after the damage stuff, which is kind of what goes above and beyond here for this. So what you're looking at is, when you talk about Defender for Business, is it's enterprise grade level protection. So this is pretty much the same protection that Microsoft offers on its peak level E5 style licensing, brought down for the SMB market. So there's a couple of little bits that it doesn't carry, which is mainly around retention of data and things like that for integrating into more advanced solutions. But it's carrying all of the core security features from enterprise, bringing it into the availability in the SMB space. So some really, really powerful tools there that are designed on those larger end customers, and ensuring that everybody can get use of that. Easy to use. All this stuff that we've spoken about today all integrates into single portals at Microsoft. So it's one admin center you log into, and then you come into individual portals from there. So from a management perspective, this is a whole lot easier. And being able to obviously drive the data around that, so providing information like security scores and reporting and things, is 100 times easier when you've got all your eggs in one basket, so to say, where all the tools are talking to each other. They're all integrated with one another in the ways and means that they was built to do. And then the cost-effective factor as well. Obviously, buying a single license is a lot cheaper than going to market and trying to buy multiple licenses from multiple locations. And the kind of the power of volume that comes with that as well, kind of increases things considerably for a lot of customers as well. But how does it work when it comes to the EDR solution? So I usually give a very good acronym on this, which is all around, imagine it being your building security. Each individual component parts that come with this offer the security outside the building, the security inside the building, the security guard turning up at the building, the alarms being raised, etc. It's kind of the flow that it would go through as it hits individual points on this. But we've got Northwind traders up here again. Busiest time of the year. Mission critical files became unusable. Hackers and ransomware encrypted the files, demanding a payment in order to get an encryption key. So Northwind must either pay up or lose their data, which could result in the business closing, as per the statistic we gave you earlier on. Important thing to remember here with this data as well is, although you may pay that demand and you get your encryption key back, you in no way, shape or form get to choose how that data comes back to you. It doesn't always come back in the same format it left you in. So it can be a case of data becomes, more often than not, it will be a situation where that data is no longer readable. The files become corrupt, and it's a useless ornament to you anyways in a lot of situations, because no care is being taken with that information. It doesn't hold the same sort of level of regard with the hacker as it does with yourself. So there's our hacker there, coughing up the money in order to get the key back. However, Defender for Endpoint capabilities would have helped stop this situation from happening in the first instance. So with Defender for Endpoint capabilities, it carries in there, which is something that is known as endpoint detection and response, or you'll often see this called EDR for short out there in the industry. But with protections in place, if a user is tricked into bypassing defenses, or a malicious actor is able to get protection and get past the protection, in a highly targeted scenario, then Defender for Business kind of steps in to detect what's happening there and stop the suspicious behavior automatically, as well as kind of correlating multiple related alerts into a single incident for reporting the follow-up and the investigation. So as I mentioned earlier, where it almost goes through a kind of a map as to what it would do there, it's about Microsoft stepping in, detecting what's happening there, stopping what's happening there, and then after the fact providing the investigative report to say, this is what happened, this is how it happened, this is where we've stopped it, now you need to go away and stop that from happening again, whether that be educational purposes. Do we need to invest in some solutions there around ensuring people are up to date on the latest phishing awareness testing and things of that nature that also comes with it. But what it'll also do with this Defender for Business piece as well is it helps to recover the files in the event of a successful ransomware attack. So worst case scenario, and something does happen, files that are stored in your OneDrive for Business automatically have what is known as a version of them created. So items can then be done to a predate their encryption by the ransomware, so that you have those documents available again with you. You can almost imagine this as if it's taking a snapshot before the incident and after the incident, so that it can do a semi-rollback and get you those documents back before they was encrypted. Now, this isn't always a case of it happened immediately before it was encrypted. Sometimes it can be for a few hours before, but it's important to remember that data becomes available to you again, and Microsoft will automatically delete the encrypted files and redrop in play with the new recovered files that predate that encryption. So some really, really powerful tools here where it's able to find what's happening before it happens, stop it in its tracks if it picks it up at a later date, then provide all the remediation afterwards, as well as the investigative work, so that you can address what happened, why it happened, and how we stop it from happening again. The other benefit to Defender for Endpoint as well is it doesn't just have to sit on your Windows laptop. It goes across Mac, it works on Android and iOS, it will work on Azure virtual desktops, and it'll work on Windows 365 style setups. So again, cloud computing setups, virtual machines that you've got there. So it works across platform. So one user can have this set up on their phone and their laptop and their tablet simultaneously and know that they're going to be protected no matter which device is working from and what is going on there. So again, cross-platform, it gives you some real good capabilities there that not a lot of other vendors can bring to the table. But one of the objections we kind of come across quite on a regular basis here is that people don't really recognize Microsoft as a security vendor. So what Microsoft have become really, really good at is being very, very security centric and putting security literally at the heart of everything that they choose to do, whether that be their current ongoing Copilot AI or whether we're talking about products like Defender for Business, etc. that sit there. You'll see on here that they have some heavily, heavily awarded and high rated third party testing that's taken place. So this is outside of Microsoft, independently done. They kind of have no play in how these are scored whatsoever. AV test 6 out of 6. AV comparatives give it a 99.7% rating. SE Labs giving it a AAA award, which is the highest it goes to. And then MITRE, industry-leading optics and detection capabilities, were rating it really, really highly as well. And again, that's another blog piece that will be able to be checked out to look at that. On top of that, they also come out very, very highly on the IDC MarketScape. So this is specifically looking at Microsoft endpoint security for small and medium businesses in this instance. And you'll see this works very much like a magic quadrant from Gartner. Top right-hand corner, Microsoft, huge ball there, which situates market share. And obviously, it's giving information there around their position as pretty much leaders within the space, as you'll see it up there. So they have a huge presence in security. We did a presentation just last week, funnily enough, and we was with some of the Microsoft security specialists, and Microsoft actually have now where they are doing it's 76 trillion sensor points per day in terms of data that's available to them. So that's globally 76 points of data that they check every single day, which helps them manage their security environment, manage their posture, and choose the direction that they go in the future in terms of their kind of security policies and procedures that they would implement, and the direction that they go with their products as well. So 76 trillion per day. And again, that's a stat that came out of the Microsoft 2024 defense report. Quick Google of that, and it's very, very much accessible to anybody that wants to see it. It's a public facing document, and like I say, tons of really good information in there around cybersecurity if it's something you're interested in digesting and learning more about. And that's everything that I had for you all today. I've got time for some Q&A now if anybody does have any questions.
James, that was a really interesting dive into premium. Thank you so much for that. It was really interesting. As I said at the beginning of the session, you can put questions into the chat. I know that sometimes folks are a little hesitant to do that, but if you have questions that either come up post call or ones that you don't want to raise your hand on now, your account managers will be in touch over the next couple of days, and we'll obviously be able to get your feedback or your thoughts or your ideas. We're constantly looking to how we can improve that these sessions. So I'll give you all a couple more minutes for questions.
James, one question that's come in is how long does it take for a business to integrate Business Premium into their Microsoft tenant environment? You're on mute, James.
I am on mute, I apologise. So yeah, it's a really good question, to be honest, and it very much depends on how far you are along your journey with Microsoft. If you are, for instance, a business standard user or a business basic user, it would be a lot more simple for you to be able to kind of integrate into these additional product stacks that sit there. Now, the beauty kind of that sits with Microsoft 365 is, as I said earlier, is it all kind of sits within singularized platforms, etc. And utilizing things like Intune, it makes it really straightforward for you to be able to push these applications out to devices kind of en masse, rather than having to do a traditional, device by device install. So it's a bit of how long's a piece of string? So it depends how far you are along with your Microsoft journey. But a lot of these tools, particularly for SMBs, can be rolled out in a matter of days. If not weeks in a larger environment, shall we say. So it can be really, really, quick to be able to implement these tools.
And another one, I mean, obviously Business Premium across the board would be the recommended for their security suite and things like that. But is it possible to mix and match different licenses?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no dead-on requirement. You absolutely have to have Business Premium for every user. It's not right for every user in a lot of instances. We tend to see a lot of people utilizing Business Premium along like first line licensing and some users will be on basic because they're the temp staff, or it's scenarios like that. So absolutely, you can mix and match. You can mix and match when it comes to the term taken as well, whether you want rolling monthly or annual commitments and things like that as well. So there's a lot of flexibility in the program.
I see another. Thank you for that, James. I see another one. How many devices can one license cover, James?
So when it comes to the business premium license, they can have it installed across 5 devices in terms of like applications and things like that. So if you're a user who's got a laptop, a tablet, a mobile phone, secondary desktop PC or anything, you'll be more than covered as an individual on that. It's important to remember though that it's a per user device, not a per user license, not a per device license. So it's not something you can cross share between users.
One user can have up to 5 devices, but 5 devices can't have 5 devices can't have
5 individual users.
5 users. Yes, yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
And another one, does this work with Mac?
Yes, it does. Now there is a couple of little quirks as you go through it in terms of some features and functionality has to be set up slightly differently and things, but absolutely business premium for Mac users is something we see all the time. And all of the security products and things all integrate seamlessly into there.
Yeah, I mean, just as a side note on that, at Cobweb here we have customers that have Mac and Windows environments. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We see that all the time. So thank you.
Yeah, personally, I have both as well. I have a work Mac and I have a work Windows laptop as well. So from a personal perspective, I'm utilizing both.
Living proof. I think, unless anyone is quick, I think that's it for questions. Once again, for everyone that attended, or for those that registered and didn't attend, I think the recordings will be made available. Your account managers will be in touch in the days to come. If you have any other questions or feedback, or want to find out more about upgrades and things of that nature. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, James. And I think we'll be running these webinars monthly. In fact, there'll be other webinars with other topics that Cobweb will be hosting as well. So keep an eye out for those. And thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks for joining, everyone.